Good morning. Please welcome Director of Product Security at Slack, Larkin Ryder.
Hi. Thank you for joining me here today to talk about how Slack can help you work securely in today's changing workplace. My name is Larkin Ryder. I am the Director of Product Security at Slack. For this presentation today, I will also be joined by our Operations Architect, Richard Crowley, who's going to do a wonderful talk and demo for you. And one of our special guests from Booz, Hamilton, Owen, Beste, is going to talk about his experience using Slack. All right, so as you've been learning about here at Frontiers, Slack is more than an application. It's more than a cloud service. It's actually a platform. It's a platform that provides you an ecosystem for all of your business applications. None of us afford disconnected islands of data in today's agile workplace. We need to bring all of that information together and make it available to everyone in the organization. Slack helps you do that. It helps you put the right information in front of the right people at the right time. But as a security professional, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, wow, I've just put all my sensitive data eggs in one basket. Tell me about what you're doing to protect that basket. All right, we want to be that. We want to show you how we're going to do that today. We're going to help you understand how you can trust Slack to protect your sensitive data and applications. We're proud to exceed security industry standards, and we do two things for you that will help you do that. So first of all, we're giving you a rich suite of features that you can use to configure your Slack workplace, and we give you a comprehensive set of controls that we are operating on your behalf to protect the data environment. So let's talk about each of those in turn. Starting off talking about the features that you'll use. Of course, you'll use single sign-on. Please visit Okta downstairs if you get a chance. They're a wonderful provider. We use them at Slack. We give you skim provisioning so you can automatically provision and deprovision new users into your Slack workspace, and guest account management features. Multi-factor authentication. How many people here think that's the most important security feature in the history of the internet? Please raise your hand. All right, very good. The rest of you, I'll see you after class. And of course, we give you customizable retention periods, so you can make sure you're only keeping your data for as long as you need to, and corporate export, so that you can export your data when you need to retain it longer. We have APIs that expand on this solution. For example, data loss prevention is an important feature, as is e-discovery. Both of these APIs are integrated with providers that you might find here today. Please reach out to them if you want to learn more about these features. And our audit logs API, which is one of our newer ones, that gives you the ability to review logs to see what is happening, who is doing what on your particular Slack workplace. You can see, for example, configuration changes that your administrators are making. All right, but what about what we're doing for you? The part that you can't see by going online and reading our help documentation. We are doing a lot, and these are things you might expect if you read religiously all the security standards that are available, as I do. So for example, network security and segmentation. We make sure that our networks are organized into different trust zones, like separating production data from the development environment, and separating our security zone. That's especially important to me. I want to know that all of the data coming from all of the servers at Slack, that I'm getting an accurate and well-protected representation of activity on those other servers. So this trust zone is a separate AWS account. No one at Slack can get into that account who is not part of the security team. We also run a vulnerability management program, so we're running vulnerability scans. We scan our entire infrastructure every 7 days, right? Some standards will tell you to scan at least once every 90 days. Not good enough. If I have a critical vulnerability, I'm going to remediate it within 7 days, so I need to know about it within 7 days. All right, we also harden our servers. So our servers are hardened according to, we're aligned with the CIS benchmarks, the Center for Internet Security. They provide benchmarks for all the common server applications that you might use. And these are the best practices for secure hardening of servers. We use those and we maintain them by automating our configuration management procedures so that we're sure every server we deploy is hardened to the same security standards. We have, of course, our physical and environment protections afforded to us by the wonderful people at Amazon and Google. We use AWS and the Google Cloud to host our services, and they provide state-of-the-art data center protections. Of course, all of our vendors, including Google and Amazon, are subject to our oversight. We use vendors to provide our service to you, and we're responsible for the security that they provide in that environment. So our vendor risk management program is operating constantly to evaluate new vendors and to ensure that our existing vendors are continuing to meet the high standards that we demand. We flow down our security standards to our vendors. We accept security standards from our customers, and we flow those down to our vendors as well. Of course, our compliance program is making sure that all this is happening appropriately and to the best standards that are available for the industry. Our security standards program is part of our overall governance, risk, and compliance program that we operate at Slack. And that makes sure that our senior level executives and board of directors can be confident that the security program is operating correctly. They see our metrics, they see our audit results, they know what's going on. They help us make sure it's right. Okay. But that's table stakes, right? Every security vendor, every vendor that you're working with who has a security program, every cloud service provider that you're using, they're all doing that, right? That's the minimum. But we have some innovations I want to share with you today, some things that I think we do that go a bit above and beyond other people. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about penetration testing. So penetration testing, for those of you who don't know, that's the QA program. That's the QA assessment for your security program, right? You bring in outside assessors who simulate an attack against your environment, and those people will make sure that the controls that you think are operating to protect your sensitive data and assets are operating correctly. And we run about 8 different assessments a year. These are sometimes tightly scoped in order to focus on a particular area of change or potential risk, or they're broadly scoped. Hey, we don't know what we don't know. What did we forget to secure? If there's anything that we haven't heard about, come at us however you can. We want to hear about it. We work with many different pen test providers to ensure we're getting the best of the best in these simulated attacks. We have something called the Secure Development Lifecycle. This has actually been open sourced by Slack. We present about it at a variety of conferences. We have features coming to us all the time. We're a very agile work environment ourselves. How do we make sure that the things that are being developed by our engineering team are being developed securely? We put them through a mini risk assessment. So each feature goes through this risk assessment that helps generate a list of best practices that are specific to that feature, and we will do specific testing for that feature and assign security engineers to do architectural reviews as appropriate depending on the risk assessment results. And finally, I want to talk to you about Security Bot. This is maybe one of my favorite things that we have at Slack. It's instrumental to our security program, and it was actually developed by Ryan Huber, who is one of our first security hires. So I don't know how many of you are first security hires, but wow, that is an awesome job and responsibility. And the things you need to do there is make sure that you know what's going on, and Security Bot helps us do that. So remember that secure enclave I told you about, that separate AWS trust zone that has all our security logs? Well, Security Bot is constantly monitoring that data, looking for activities that are unusual or maybe sketchy. We've tuned this over the course of 3 years, and from that tuning, we generate a set of alerts that go to our incident response team. And in addition to the response that the incident team will do, we also are generating an out-of-band notification to the instigator of the activity. That person is being asked to confirm, hey, is that you? Did you do that thing? This is important because it subtly sends the message that maybe what you're doing is unusual or sketchy behavior, something that maybe the security team is going to nag you about a lot if you don't do something differently. So it subtly redirects them to more maybe less risky paths, but it also confirms that the person who the log says did the thing actually did the thing. Very important. All right, so we think we're doing a pretty good job with all that, and of course those are just some things we're doing. And we are working pretty hard to make sure you know we're doing a good job, and our audit and compliance team works hard so you don't have to take our word for it. You get all of these lovely badges on our security landing page, slack.com/security. Please visit it early and often to see all of our information there. And as April mentioned this morning, the hardest thing about this is keeping this page up to date, because we now have our FedRAMP tailored authorization for agencies that want to use our solution with low impact data. And if you have controlled unclassified information in Slack, we have now our NIST 800-171 letter of attestation to give you confidence under DFARS. lot of word salad there for people who are not working in the government area. But what April didn't know this morning, because I didn't have a chance to tell her, because I only found out at 11:30 last night, is that we also have our ISO 27017 certification. Very happy to be able to announce that all to you here today. First news. All right, so we'll continue to work with our external assessors and maintain these certifications for your needs as well as ours. Slack is a Slack customer. We have all of our data in Slack. We want to make sure that Slack is operating effectively. It's a security tool that integrates with all of those great things that I told you about. As part of my job, I am constantly trying to evolve the security capabilities of Slack, not just to meet our needs, but to meet the needs of our entire customer base. For example, you may have seen our recent blog post on request signing and mutual TLS. It helps ensure secure communication between the applications that we integrate with and Slack. This is how we expand our ecosystem securely. Now, listening to customers is how we started down the path of this new feature we're going to tell you about. I'm giving you a little look ahead here to Enterprise Key Management. This is a highly requested capability, and to talk about this new feature and give you a quick demo, I'd like to invite our operations architect, Richard Crowley, to the stage. Richard? There you go.
Everyone, good morning. It's a great pleasure to be here to tell you about EKM, as it's much, much more commonly and briefly known, which is really a three-letter representation of a set of security controls that our customers have long been asking us for. Our prospective customers have long been asking us for. I'm here today to tell you what Slack EKM is, the risks that it's designed to mitigate, and the architecture that my teammates and I have implemented. Finally, I'll give a demo of the administrator and end user experience of using Slack EKM. Now, our customers have long been asking us for the ability to control the encryption keys that Slack uses to encrypt their data at rest. You've asked us to go above and beyond the existing encryption at rest that we support in search of greater control for yourselves and your security teams. And you've been very personally generous with your time and effort in explaining to us, to me, your threat models and how your organizations manage and model risks. And interestingly, there were two risks that resonated with absolutely everyone that I talked to. One is the risk of relying on a vendor, Slack, to protect your most sensitive information. And the other is the risk of the invisible disclosure that may happen to a third party. Now, we spent a lot of time thinking about the large solution space available to us to address these threats. And at one end of that spectrum, there's end-to-end encryption, which would protect the confidentiality of communication between end-user devices, but ultimately would sacrifice critical Slack features like channel archives and public channels, notifications, platform applications, and especially search. At the other end of the spectrum, there are policy-based controls, which are absolutely necessary parts of any security program, but relative to these threats simply aren't enough on their own. So in order for us to maintain all of Slack's features, those you know and love and rely on every day, in their full and unhindered form, in order for us to inspire confidence from you and earn your trust, and in order for us to preserve the performance of Slack and our ability to continue to evolve what the product is, we decided that we had to enable you to bring your own encryption keys into the Slack service. This is interesting because it provides two new capabilities to you that serve to enhance Slack's existing security program. The first of these is visibility. Now, Larkin mentioned the audit logs feature of Slack, which gives your administrators visibility into configuration actions that take place in your Slack organization. EKM adds to that visibility into all of the encryption key accesses that happen that are accompanied by organization, workspace, and channel IDs, plus timestamps and reason codes. And best of all of this allows Slack to continue operating without any impact on those features. So the second capability is control. And without any notice to or coordination with Slack, EKM allows your administrators to deny Slack access to your encryption keys and thus to your sensitive data. In fact, your administrators get the ability to revoke Slack's access to your encryption keys organization-wide, certainly, but also by workspace, by channel, by period of time, or any of these facets combined. Best of all, through all of this, even when there are revocations in place, Slack remains Slack. From platform apps and notifications to search, everything that you know and love about Slack remains intact. And when it launches this winter, Slack EKM will support Amazon Web Services KMS as a source of cryptographic key material. And it'll send log information to Amazon CloudWatch logs. And all of this will be in your AWS account, giving you control over the ultimate authority on your encryption keys. So Slack today, without EKM, is at the center of a global network of caches and real-time messaging systems, is a web application that's backed by thousands of MySQL databases. And these databases are where your messages are stored. When your organization enrolls in EKM, a new service enters the picture. Before your messages are stored in MySQL, and again, after they're read back later, they're sent to the EKM service. And the EKM service's job is to encrypt and decrypt your messages before they're stored so that we only store the ciphertext. This design of operating on the plain text rather than by sharing encryption keys means that we encapsulate everything about protecting your encryption keys in one place. And that has three major advantages. The first is that the rest of Slack engineering doesn't have to think hard about protecting your encryption keys. That increases safety for you and increases developer velocity for us. The second benefit is that by concentrating all the protection of encryption keys in one place, we create a smaller and thus easier to audit code base. And finally, we further increase the protection of your encryption keys by denying human beings Unix accounts on the systems that process your encryption keys. So this EKM service, it's responsible for sourcing keys from Amazon KMS, caching them for a few minutes to keep Slack fast, encrypting and decrypting your messages, and sending logs to Amazon CloudWatch logs to give you visibility. And with every request that we make to AWS, we send your organization, workspace, and channel IDs, plus a timestamp. All of these identifiers give you intelligible visibility into what's going on in your organization, helping identify what messages and what parts of your channel history are being decrypted. But they're also able to be referenced in your key policies, which means you can use very fine-grained access controls to revoke Slack's access not to your whole organization's data, but only to the area where risks arise. And I'd like to share that with you now with a little demo of how administrators and end users experience Slack EKM. So here's a Slack workspace. And it's like any Slack workspace that you've ever seen before, only this is the first one you've ever seen that's enrolled in Slack EKM. Importantly, though, you can't tell the difference yet. And that's exactly the point. Slack has remained Slack. Now suppose that our security organization has detected an attack against our organization, and out of an abundance of caution, we've decided we're going to revoke Slack's access to the encryption keys organization-wide. Our administrators do that in the AWS console because these keys and their policies are entirely outside of Slack's control. And so I have to, at this moment, just say, I'm sorry for the interface. But this statement here where I say allow, I can instead tell Amazon to deny Slack's AWS account access to use our encryption keys. And now every subsequent API call, every subsequent load of a Slack client is subjected to this new policy. And as you can see, things have gotten very dire in here. Communication grinds to a halt. Everything is unable to decrypt message. And you're left with a lot of time to sit around and wonder if there's a better way. And it's my demo, so I know the answer, and there is. If your organization is thinking in depth about the risks that are posed and trying to balance the productivity of the organization with your risk management processes, you can maybe make the case that we don't need to revoke access organization-wide. We can instead deny access and use some conditions. And so here I've written a condition that denies access to a particular period of time by this timestamp and a particular channel, focusing my key revocation on exactly the area of risk that we're worried about. And so again, All subsequent API calls, all subsequent loads of Slack clients are subjected to this new policy. And now, recent messages have returned. I can send messages and get work done again. Old history has returned. Other channels are here. But in the middle, this area where things got a little too real, we have revoked Slack's access to the encryption keys and mitigated the risk while our incident response process takes over. This is a perfect balance of the organization's ability to get work done and the security team's ability to investigate and mitigate risk. Best of all, though, when this risk is behind us in the rearview mirror, we could of course decide to burn the keys permanently, but we're probably more often going to decide to restore access. And so by simply changing our policy back, we retain access to this message history. We give it back to the organization. Its institutional memory is restored, and everything about Slack continues to operate as you'd expect. And I'm thrilled that alongside the platform, notifications, search, and everything else that we know and love about Slack, that EKM is going to be coming alongside Enterprise Grid this winter. And with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Larkin Ryder, who's got more to say with Owen Best.
That's awesome. Good job. So glad that worked.
Thanks.
The demo gods were with us today. Yes, always a good sign. Thank you, Richard. I welcome to the stage now Owen Best from Booz Allen Hamilton. We're going to talk a little bit about how they are using Slack, and please have a seat, how they're using Slack to discuss the needs of their ever-changing workplace and stay agile in an environment where it is very important that they do so. So, hi.
Hi, Larkin. How are you doing?
I'm good. Tell us a little bit about your role and Booz Allen Hamilton.
Absolutely. So for those of you who don't know, Booz Allen is a company that's been around for over 100 years. Started in the management consulting business, did lots of stuff in the 20th century, but then in the last few decades has exploded in the software delivery, software development space. And in fact, for the last 10 years, I was working in the markets with our DoD customers and other folks to build software. And now, today, I had an opportunity to come into our internal organization to make sure that the way we deliver tools to the teams in our customer-facing organizations is effective and secure.
Excellent. So tell me, you need to build these secure systems. What are you worried about protecting?
So we're really worried about the data. So as custodians of customer information and customers that include very important government clients who have a word salad of different requirements that you mentioned earlier for protecting that information, we need to make sure that as our developers are trying to push the boundaries and innovate, that they do so safely and don't accidentally move too fast and break too many things.
And so you're working on tools that will help them enable their work more efficiently.
Absolutely. So our role is that we provide a whole suite of tools for everyone in the enterprise to use. Slack, GitHub, Jira, continuous integration tools, Amazon Web Services, Azure, the list goes on and on. But it's a whole suite of tools that we have tied together within a single security boundary and then implemented some custom web applications to manage, orchestrate, and provision these tools.
So you have this suite of tools. It's managed within your own boundaries. So you're ensuring the security of the environment that all of your projects are operating in.
Exactly.
Yeah. That sounds like that sounds great. I mean, I love the combined mission there, where you're providing the platform, you're ensuring its security, but then you are also making sure it's agile. It's keeping up with the needs of your customer base.
And that's really the core of our mission. Is that it's really easy to say, no, you can't do this. You want to use that tool? No, you can't. And it's easy, but not really recommended to say, do whatever you want. I don't care. Go on the internet, find stuff, download it. So it's striking a balance between those things that we really see it as our dual mission, because we want to make sure there's security, but not at the cost of innovation. So we need to be flexible and enabling as an organization.
Yes, and I'm curious, how does Slack fit into all that?
So Slack, so my first exposure to Slack was actually when I moved into this role on the team. Our development team was actively using Slack. We found out from talking to Slack that there were some 700 workspaces that folks had stood up out on the internet outside of our sanctioned official one. And so we worked with Slack and the grid to move all those together behind a single sign-on boundary enabled multi-factor authentication, and we're able to implement some of those security features there. But in terms of how we use it, our teams are actively using it in development of the platform, in the operations of the platform, in talking to and receiving feedback from our customers, both in the organization as well as interfacing with external customers.
So the project teams that are delivering the software projects to your external
Yes.
customers are also using Slack as part
They're
of that.
using Slack, exactly. And they're using Slack and the app integrations to the other tools in our platform so that they can deliver effectively, not just through chat, but through the ability to connect all these other things together in one place.
And your team has the wonderful job of orchestrating all
Yes.
of that communication.
Yes. And so that's why APIs are really the core of everything we do. So we want, the only way you can possibly scale a secure delivery of a platform like Slack or all these integrations is through automating it. So we've written a bunch of microservice systems that talk to each of our different applications, set up integrations between them, provision and deprovision users based on events like hiring, departures from the company, and triggers from various systems will fire events that then deprovision accounts automatically behind the scenes. And it's all made possible because of the rich APIs available in these services today.
I can only hope that you open source that at some point. I'm sure half the people in this room would be really happy to have those capabilities available. It's amazing. It sounds like you've done a lot of integration work and a lot of customization work, so you can really operate Slack workspaces at scale.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. All right, so it's funny because you talked about integrating with things like, you integrate with Jira, you integrate with GitHub. These are all standard tools that people use in project management. And I think of those as like, okay, you've got your defect tracking repository, you've got your code repository, and you've also got Slack, which is kind of a conversation tracking repository,
Absolutely.
which is just as important a part of your ability to deliver on a software project as any of these others. Yeah.
And we're excited there with some of the features that we've seen here at the conference around how to take that context back to other places and other tools so that you can carry the context of a conversation with you as you go from tool to tool in that platform.
And that's going to come through more APIs and integrations in the long run.
Yes, we're very excited for more of those to come out.
Well, we are certainly looking forward to working with you on those things. And thank you so much for being here, Owen. I really appreciate your time today. All right. Well, I have some great news for everyone, and that is that I do see that we have a little bit of time for questions.
Sure.
So if you can stay up here for questions.
Absolutely.
And Richard, if you want to come back up and see. It looks like someone would like to start us off right here.
Hi, sorry, I'm Kristen. I'm from Lockheed Martin. We've been challenged to try to work with Slack for our communications. I had a major question on the EKM architecture. Our biggest problem was the indexing of the content that is key to the critical, search and features of Slack. Where is the indexing of the content in the EKM model? Because that was not on your architecture drawing.
It's a very simple architecture diagram. So search indices are themselves encrypted. They're using keys that are sourced from your source of key material. Unfortunately, because of the nature of the information retrieval problem, the search indices are an organization-wide entity. So to perform a search, we need to fetch keys from your KMS to decrypt the index, to mount that index file system, perform the search, and then let that expire and get unmounted after the key cache lifetime. When you want to revoke access to the search index, you can do so by revoking access organization-wide.
So how long is the key hash access time?
5 minutes.
Okay, because our big, you're decrypting content on a common platform. In the past, you had to follow the Sun model. So we're talking 5 minutes, the key would be accessed, and then we're done?
After 5 minutes, the key falls out of our key cache. The search indices get unmounted so that we have to fetch that key from your source of key material again in order to prove we still have access to it. The 5 minutes was chosen to give us a balance of short as possible for your risk management purposes, but long enough for us to send notifications and deal with stampedes of people coming to see what an @channel mention was like. And in the search case, we kept the same key cache lifetime because that's a good sort of amortization of the cost of mounting those indices.
Okay, thanks. In the future, if you want to move those indices somewhere that is proprietary to the companies, that might help a little bit as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right, anyone else have a question for anyone up here? I'm going to go all the way in the back. I saw her hand first. Yes, you.
Sure. My name is Shital, and I work for Oliver Wyman, which is another consulting company. So my question, I think, is to you, Larkin. I know that you've done a lot of work with security. So how many data breaches have you had in the past, recent past, I should say?
Me personally?
No, for Slack.
If we have a data breach, we announce it. So our blog is actually a record of any data breach that we've had through the history of the company, and I'll refer you to that for details on there. But it's not something that has come up very often. Yes.
Hi, my name is Anthony Robertson from Priceline. I was just curious, in a similar fashion to the way that the Apple Store and Google Play Store scan apps before they are allowed to be on our phones, is Slack going to provide a feature like that for the applications?
Thank you, Anthony. That's one of my favorite questions that I get at conferences such as this one. We have a different model for our application directory. So those applications in Google and Apple, they're actually hosting the binary. So they're taking those onto their platform. It's a controlled platform. They're the runtime environment, as well as the delivery environment for those bits. We're not. We allow those applications to be delivered from and hosted from our partners. So we do take responsibility for doing a security review of each of the applications that come into our directory. We're looking at the scopes of the tokens that they're requesting to make sure they're appropriate. We're doing some kind of basic due diligence on how they operate and versus our terms of service. But it is a shared responsibility model. And so the implications for you as a user of these applications is that you have to consider the diligence you need to do for that particular application. If that application also removes data from your Slack instance and stores it with that application provider, you should consider the implications of that for your risk tolerance.
And I would just add to that in our organization, this is something we have to deal with as well. And we're following a whitelist type model where we have specifically gone through identified key integrations and apps, and we take requests. Like as new things come out, we want users to be able to recommend things, but then we do our own security assessment and audit, and then specifically enable applications. So I'd recommend you consider that if you have a security need.
An excellent suggestion.
Thank you.
Anyone else? We're out of time, so I think I'm actually going to have to clear the room. But the good news is lunch is ready now, so I will invite you to find me or any of my partners here at lunch. We'd love to continue the conversation. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen.